Hey guys, Grenokaga here with a C5 video on how we wormholers tend to generate several billions of ISK throughout our week of ratting. In this session, I rat for an hour and a half and I make a billion ISK. So if that sounds intriguing to you, go ahead, stay tuned, get a cool drink. I'm gonna start this video off with all the data stuff, so people who are curious about data can go ahead and see that to what C5 Space is all about. And for those who are here for an actual walkthrough, I'll have that right after all the data. So with my C5 Paladin running solo inside this vanilla Garrison, I finished the total site in 39 minutes, resulting in 850 million ISK per hour. That's pretty good, especially good for my fit. I've already done this series before, and back then I was averaging 750 million, so I think I've just gotten a little bit better to get that up. And if we go on to look at when I was duoing with Elm, he got on and asked if he can join. I said sure, why not? Our site time was 27 minutes for our first site. Now we did have a mishap in there which caused me to be debashed and do less damage for quite a bit, and I'll go over that mishap later on inside the walkthrough. But we are getting 1.2 billion ISK an hour. Now we are two of us, so that 1.2 billion ISK an hour is translated to about 600 million ISK an hour. But we did have that mishap. In our second site, we did much better, and we finished our total site in 24 minutes. That's site and drifter, bringing us up to 1.38 billion ISK an hour, so about 650 million ISK each, which is better. Now, if you haven't clearly noticed, that's less than my solo amount. What's going on there? I'll explain that later, but there's like a small phenomenon that your ISK per hour from ratting does go down when you just add one or two people. But once you get enough people that you're a large operation and you're optimized, you will notice it go spike back up, and I'll talk about that later. For now, let's look at my fit. It's a solo prioritized fit, and I think the reason why that's important is because Elm actually came out with a fleet prioritized fit, and it's interesting to see and notice the difference. When you're solo, you want as much DPS as you can so your site time's reduced. And that typically means you're going to want two fits, a site fit and a drifter fit, and in between the two, you're going to take a minute to debastion, refit, and then do the next part. For me, I get that from having my site fit where I have an extra tank mod and an extra tracking unit to increase my application. But then when I go for the drifter, I take that moment to refit and switch out those two mods and application mod for more capacitor, which is a cap power relay and a cap recharger I think I throw in. For C5 fits, we're looking for certain minimums. That's going to be our EHP a second that we rep against omni damage, because sleepers do omni damage, and how much gigajoules a second we generate. During sites, there is heavy cap pressure, and during the drifter, there is insane cap pressure. When we check these minimums through pyfa, that's how we figure out whether or not we're going to survive before we ever even test a fit out. If you go and do something like take my fit, it's been tested. I highly recommend using tested fits. And if you're ever in a corporation, I recommend asking around for fits, and that way you actually meet the Marauder community within your group and you're learning about the fits. When people give you a fit, they tell you to go pyfa it, you're going to see how your fit performs with your skills, and all that matters. So when it comes to being safe in Wormhole space, I highly recommend you roll off all the holes you do not need, because they're just a problem waiting to happen. During this day, we actually left a chain open because I had a G to connect down it, and I didn't feel like rolling it off and taking away all the other courtmates' options, you know, people getting on that night. I didn't want to take the Jita away from them. So if you are leaving holes open, make sure you have eyes on them, and I recommend having bubblers on them. That way you can bubble anything that comes through, and if a scout comes through, you know about it, so you can stop ratting, and if a fleet comes through, you can hopefully delay them a little bit to get off grid, or try to save some ships. So let's get into the ratting aspect and start off with our mistake that we did. And this gives us a chance to introduce the drifter and look at Ricky's Guide. Ricky's Guide is the #1 tool we're going to be using in order to run these sites, and that's really easy to read. Starting on the left, we see that some of these NPCs are marked as trigger. That just means that the final one of that type killed will spawn the next wave. And on C5 sites, we can also see there's something called a DTA trigger. The final one of that type killed will spawn this little house thing that the drifter comes out of. Once you shoot or damage the DTA, it'll then spawn the drifter. So Coming up, we're about to accidentally spawn the drifter, and that's because I typically leave tag Y on grid till I'm done with the site, so I'm used to being able to smart bomb the whole time. And as someone from a red giant, where smart bombs are twice the length, I really don't like being around the DTA trigger, so I make sure to leave that. But my friend here shot it and killed it. So on the next wave, which has frigates, we go to smart bomb and accidentally spawn the drifter early. For him, not an issue. His fit can handle it and it's fine because it does both the site and the drifter just kind of as one design. So the little added DPS from what remained from the final wave 4 wasn't enough to really worry him, but for me, my fit goes from tank to cap stability for the drifter. So when he went on me, I was put in a dangerous, precarious situation where he could have neutered me out and turned all my stuff off and just killed me. Oh, why'd you spawn drifter? Oh no, that was our bomb. That's why I like to keep tag Y. Can you shoot drifter? I'll do sight.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And if anyone has a command boost Desi, can we get a command boost Desi real quick?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Armor, right?
Yes, please.
I don't know if I have a Magus. We're not gonna be able to tackle this thing anyways, are we? I don't think you care. Sure.
You're shooting him, right? I needed the aggro from him to get off me.
Yeah, I am shooting him. On flag. I do not have a Magus. I'll put ECs on him. I don't know if that's anything.
I can bring boosts. Just talking now. Okay, I think we're good now. I think we're good. We're slowly getting better. Okay, yeah, now it looks like he switched onto you now.
Yeah, I'm doing just fine with him, so good.
Yeah, my cap just wasn't ready for that.
Cool. Yeah, I think we'll be alright.
I'm gonna finish clearing grid and yeah. Well, yeah, not the most exciting footage, I know, but I think it shows two extremely important things. One, why I think nowadays I'm really starting to support and believe in fits that can do both the sight and drifter. And two, you gotta be careful with that DTA. I've died before to that once, a long time ago, and I've heard plenty of other people die into it. It happens every so often, especially when people rat in red giants for the first time. You always hear like, oh, accidentally smart bombed the DTA. And if you're like me in two separate fits, it's a nightmare. And with all that, I think it's finally time for an actual site guide. So welcome to the core Garrison, my favorite C5 site. It's also the best C5 site, both in how much ISK it offers and how easy it is to complete. Wave 1's super simple. All we have to do is lock up all the sentries, shoot them first, then start plowing through the cruisers. The final cruiser you kill is the trigger, and the whole time you're doing this, you're just smart bombing away these frigates. And while it's generally on my screen right now, if you see kind of moving around that bookmark I have on that tip of that Talican structure, using bookmarks is extremely effective. Make bookmarks. It'll help your sight times a lot. And then for this one, I just lock up a random battleship, start shooting at the con flag, and then lock up all the keepers. Gotta make sure you keep one alive through the trigger.
One of the frigates stay alive, okay.
This is one of the harder waves because of the sheer amount of cap pressure and need to use your smart bombs. So just be wise on how much cap you're expending, and if you really need to reduce the cap pressure, kill some battleships before you start smart bombing the frigates, because once you kill about 2 battleships, you only need to run 1 repper, which means you'll have plenty of cap to run your smart bombs. Yeah, so tag Y, don't kill it until like we're done with the site, that way we can smart bomb final wave.
Okay, great.
For this wave, my preferred NPC order is the keepers first, since they're really squishy, and they run away from you, so their transversal is almost nil, so I can hit them with that con flag, and then I go on to a couple battleships. I make sure to keep tag X, and then I blow through all the cruisers except for tag Y. I make sure to leave tag Y until I'm done with the site, and you'll see later that I kind of reship while the site's still going so that I minimize my downtime. And if you've noticed, I have already dropped my MTU now, even though there is one more wave where we are going to be smart bombing. That is because that final wave, the amount of smart bombs you put onto those Warden frigates, it's just not enough to really do that much damage to your MTU, so you might as well get that process going. And on final wave, you can really shoot whatever you want to shoot. Sometimes I like to shoot the cruisers as they come in, sometimes I like to try to snipe some of the frigates as they come in, but being that I accidentally escalated ourselves last site, I immediately went for a keeper. Like, we're gonna kill the keeper first. But when it comes down to final waves, this is definitely not the worst final wave. That's still held by the Stronghold, which does a insane amount of damage, and they all remote rep, so it's one hell of a time. But now that I finished the frigates, I go ahead, drop my mobile depot because I need to get into my drifter fit. And I'm doing this while we still have some rats to kill because I know that unbastioned I can tank the site, and I just want to get my weapons timer over with. And in case you're wondering what the refit looks like, I just take off my modules I don't need, put on the modules I do need, and it's pretty simple. And hopefully you're done by the time the site's over.
So now we shoot Y?
Yep, and I am drifter refit, so I'm ready.
Thanks, shooting.
Blue fire into Anarchy.
Hey.
Next hole, blue fire into Anarchy.
And welcome to the Drifter. This guy alone is worth 300 million ISK. He's what we're after all along. We're just gonna sit here and slowly work at him for a while. Yeah, there's not much to the Drifter. As long as you have a fit design to handle him, he's not that much of an issue. He just takes a while.
Oh, that's a blue fire on Delta?
Blue fire.
Yeah, I figured, yeah. The ECMs I have here, they're not going to do anything against this drifter, right?
No, they work.
I think so.
No, they work.
Oh, they do work. Okay,
He'll target it and kill it. They're good for, like, escaping.
right, okay. I just leave them on there. I just blew up my other drones because it's been a minute since I did remember that smart bombs do that. That's all I have left.
Alright, so this drifter took us about 11 minutes, which is nearly cutting my solo time in half, so that's pretty good. We're almost there. And since we're on the drifter, I can talk about him a little bit. I earlier mentioned that he does follow a certain aggro pattern. That is, he follows the highest DPS, and below that, he follows things like cap transfers. So if you ever do things like Leshak nesters, and those nesters are remote capping each other, he'll always primary the nester, but then once a Leshak spools up and gets that DPS aggro going, the Leshak will then take the aggro. You see most of this drifter, I was taking the aggro, which means I was doing a little more damage than Elm. Pretty cool. And coming up right here, I'm going to do something that people might find odd, but the drifter does warp off. When he gets to 20-ish% armor, he's going to attempt to go and save his life. So I like to just send my bubbler over, and I just bubble. Real easy for me. Other options are to send a tackler. All you need is 4 points of scram, or you can launch your own bubble, or you can let him run. He will run to a wormhole, and you can just fight him on that wormhole. All up to you.
Alright, next job.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna dock up the paladin. I'll leave the bubbler out until you're home.
Thanks. Alright, and there you have it. ISK. 0.1 billion. Took me, I've been recording for an hour and a half, so not too long. Less than a 2-hour session, billion ISK. I'm not mad. Pretty happy, actually. Yeah. bet these 3 sites would be worth about 150 to 200 million ISK. Salvage. More money there. I'm gonna go ahead, dock up, and turn this in, get some money, and catch you all later.